Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Lisa's Love and Light. Thank you all for being here today. So, happy Monday. It's Monday, guys. And like I said, I can never tell you when I am going to be here, like what time, because of my schedule. And this week, my schedule is a little different. However, I'm here and I hope you guys had a great day. The sun is shining. It's a little warmer outside and it's no rain. So I'm happy about that. So, um, so guys, this topic today is a little different for those who are joining me for the first time here. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a social worker, and I'm not a counselor. I'm someone who's gone through a lot of pain, trials, tribulations. And I'm here to discuss ways that I overcame these things because it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy at all, guys. But it's worth it. So today, the topic of discussion is allowing yourself to feel the pain. And I'm talking about this one today, guys, because tomorrow is the anniversary of my mother's passing 5 years ago, 2020. And felt like one of the worst days of my life, guys. When I lost my father, it was bad enough because I lost him before I gave birth to my son. Um, and that was hard. So, with my mom, it feels a little bit worse. When you have both of your parents gone, it just feels so like a void that you that stays with you. So for anybody out there who've lost a parent or both your parents, you know what I'm talking about, or just somebody who really um, that you love a lot and they're no longer here, and it's just been hard. It gets better with time, but the void of the loss will be with you forever. And I realize that. Um, Today I'm remembering mom as well as tomorrow because even though one of the things is like after I had my son and everything, and I became a mother myself, and I started talking to my mother a lot more about things that was going on and situations. So it seemed like every Sunday would be time set aside to talk to her. And as she got older, she mellowed out. She mellowed out, and I was able to talk to her about some things, and she was just calm and telling me certain things to do. And I kind of like really missed that because growing up, it was a little different. But as she mellowed out and we were talking about things, she would just tell me, well, do it like this. Maybe if you try it that way. And I miss that. I miss her stories. I just miss, you know, anyone who's going through this know what I'm talking about. If you've lost, you know, experienced these kind of losses. And, it does get a little better with time, but the void is always there. And remembering, laughing with her telling me stories, and all of that. Guys, I would tell you that if your parents are still here, make the most of it. Spend as much time as you can with them because tomorrow is not promised to any of us. Like I said, it's hard. And then when you have to go to work, usually I'm off, but I actually have to work this week. And trying to, how like you just have to stay focused on your work and what you're doing. And it's just been difficult, with the loss, but I get through it with prayer because just when I get up in the morning, that's the first thing I do. God has helped me so much through this. And the day that she passed was the worst pain because I just didn't want to believe it happened, and just losing her, I felt that void, the depression, the pain. And what I did realize too is that I had no support system in the physical. Nobody was there except for people who I didn't know well, that at a church that I volunteered. I used to did volunteer work. They were the only ones who came, and they brought flowers. They brought food. We were doing a shutdown, and they had masks on, and they came to the door with um, giving their condolences. They had sympathy cards. They had flowers. They had food. And I really appreciate that a lot because it was really a bad time. And especially during a shutdown, we couldn't even have a funeral. We had to have a memorial service. I mean, she was taken to her burial ground and buried, but we never had like a service because we couldn't leave the state. And also, everybody was in a panic due to the COVID. And it was just hard. So I think about a week after she was buried, we had a online memorial service, and it was just hard. Um, with no physical support system, which is important, guys. So even if it's one person who you can reach out and talk to, they can't change your circumstances, but they can listen and be there to support you. I didn't have that. And it made it that much harder for me to get through this. And, you know, I turned to prayer, God, asking Him to help me. And then I started with therapy, grief therapy. Um, and it helped a lot. And I come from a family who really don't believe in that. Oh, there must be something mentally wrong with you or unstable or whatever. But we all, as humans, fall short and we need help. None of us is perfect. And I remember reaching out to one of my mother's siblings, and I was just really distraught, and I got cursed out, everything, because I'm the black sheep of the family because I always march to a different beat of the drum, so they don't like who I am. And now I'm really my authentic self, and they can't stand that. Maybe they saw that in me as I was growing up, but I thought that they would be there when I went through these. Really, my mom, and only one people. We have a huge family. One person out of the family, which was a cousin, that contacted me to give her condolences. And when I realized that I had no support system, it just put me in a depression, guys. We're already in a shutdown. And that was during a time, remember, guys, we couldn't even go out. Only we were allowed to go out to the supermarket to get food and come back. We were not allowed to go anyplace else. So imagine being in that, and then all these people around you are dying, dropping dead. A friend that I volunteered with at the church who, I did have like that contact with, and she just passed away as well. And it was just, oh, all these people. And it was like a real dark and depressive time in my life. And, I started with therapy. I didn't know how that was going to go. And I just know that I needed help. I asked God to help me, prayer, because I was just falling into a depression. And I started, with therapy. And we just looked at each other for a while, because it was by Zoom service. So he would come on, I would come on. I didn't really want to talk. We're just looking at each other for a time. Okay, time's up. Okay. And I did that for a while because I didn't know, how to do this. But slowly but surely, I start to open up. Like I said, we all need an outlet for that pain because if it stays stuck and stagnated within us, we can't grow, heal, or evolve. We're stuck. And then another thing I didn't want to do is that I knew at some point in my life that I wanted to, do things like, besides growing and getting better, is to have friends and people in my life that will be there for me. But if I'm broken, I can't give to myself or to anybody else, and I didn't want to stay in a place of brokenness. because that's where almost felt like with my mom going. And I knew I had to do the work to heal, and it wasn't easy. And nobody, it's hard when you're misunderstood and people don't understand. It's like they throw that word, oh, my condolences, and they go about their business. But people who really take the time to just listen to you, they know they can't change the circumstances. I know they can't change it, But if you have a support system, just for somebody to listen, to pay attention, to hear what you're saying. That means a whole lot. To me, that's priceless because that's hard to find today because people are so into themselves. It's like, I got mine over here to get it the best way you can type of attitude that we see in this world today. So when you have somebody who's a true friend and they're there for you and they have your back, hold on to that because that's hard to find. And like I said, so therapy for a while, we just looked at each other. And then eventually I started to open up. And, you know, the first thing my therapist told me, like I always talk about on this channel, is to set boundaries. Set boundaries, because I was telling him about all this stuff, this toxic stuff, and people leaving my life. If they wasn't dying off, they were just disappearing, But like I always tell you guys, life um is about lessons. People, situations, and circumstances may come into our lives for a reason, season, a lifetime, or a lesson. And all of these things were lessons. Like I said, I was a person who was overgiving too much of myself, my time, and my generosity to people who didn't deserve it. But when it was time for me to receive, there was nobody there to give anything. And I had to learn this and learn this lesson. And unfortunately, I had to learn it during these those difficult times. And I did the work to heal, and it was hard to look in the mirror, to look at myself, to change things, to know that the people who were there, who I thought was there, these people were wearing masks. They were only there to receive, to for me to be the doormat. And then when I just needed just someone to listen, to be there, they were not there. And so I decided to set boundaries, as my therapist said, and then close some doors, close a lot of doors, and it wasn't easy. But as I start to do the work, you start to feel better. When you feel better, you do better. And it wasn't easy. I had to look in the mirror, look at myself. My mother's not here anymore. My father's not here. I have to pick myself up off the ground. And I can't stay in that place of depression because that can lead to despair and other situations that I did not want in my life. So I knew I had to do the work to heal. And sometimes, like always tell you guys, life and doesn't come with the manual, on of instructions on how to do A, B, C, and D. We have to find creative ways to do things so that we can heal, because if you don't heal the pain, it stays stuck. And not only that, you know, when you think about relationships, whether it's friendships or personal relationships, if you don't heal these things, you take the baggage and luggage, which I say luggage in many cases, with you to these other relationships, you know, with new beginnings and new relationships and people and circumstances. You take all that stuff with you. And I didn't want to do that. That stuff need to stay in the past. So I worked day and night and day on myself with the pain, and it was just horrific at times, but I did the work. And now I'm at a better space. What I'm talking about with you guys today, um, I couldn't even think about talking about how I felt and what was going on and etc. But like I said, it's an outlet for the pain. And if we keep inside everything that's hurting us and we walk around, we could be like a walking time bomb. I remember growing up when traumatic situations happen. I was told what happens in his house stays in his house. But if anyone doesn't talk about it and find ways to heal it, then you carry all that stuff with you all throughout your life. And that's why sometimes you have to look at relationships and situations and circumstances, why all these things may not be going right in your life, because there's things that you might need to heal and unlearned lessons will always spin back around, maybe different characters, different scenario, but the same lesson. And it's worse and worse and worse when it keeps spinning back around and we don't learn it. And I started to figure this out, and as I figure it out, I start to do the work because I didn't want to repeat any more lessons, guys, because it gets worse and worse. And as I did the work, I start to do better, feel better, little by little. Those baby steps I talk about, like a baby, they know they're supposed to walk. They get up, they fall down, they crawl, they get up, do it again and again until one day they are walking. That's how it is on this healing journey. Nothing is perfect, but nothing ventured is nothing gained. Do the work little by little by little. The first place I would suggest is therapy, a grief support system where other people who are dealing with grief and pain just as much as you are. And you sit, you can do it online or in person, whatever your choice is. But when you do that, you see you're not by yourself. There's other people out there that's grieving, that has pain that they're dealing with. But when we come together and we talk about these things, that's an outlet, and then we can release and let go, and that was hard for me to do, but I have learned to do that. The pain is still there, the grief is there, but it's not bad as it used to be. Because as I stay on this healing journey and take care of myself, self-care, self-love, it gets better. Because I know that my parents would never, ever want me to live the rest of my life in pain, being depressed, and being isolated for the rest of my life. That's not what they want for me. That's not what God wants for me. So I had to do the work, and not just self-love and self-care, but self-reflection and looking at how I can change things for the better. And I started to do that. As self care, you do better, and now I'm here sharing with other people because there are people out there who feel lost, who feel alone, who feel pain, and that can turn into despair. There was somebody who used to encourage me a lot when I was feeling down, and this person is no longer here. And when I found out that he went into a depression and then suicide, it just made me feel like, what could I have done to make a difference in his life? So I made vows to God to help other people, to pay it forward, as well as helping myself, because people need to hear that there's ways to heal themselves. They don't have to be in despair, and they don't have to stay in that space of despair, that there is hope. Without hope, there's despair. Um, so there's a lot of help out here. But the first place I would tell everyone to start is with therapy, you know. And I'm always going to keep my mother's spirit alive, through storytelling, about what she meant to me, how she helped me in my life, even though I didn't want to hear a lot of things that she said to me, but I heard them and I'm applying them in my life, and they are helping me tremendously, along with the prayer and God. Like I said, as I take steps, God is behind me taking 2 and 3 steps, and I've learned to ignore the noise and the toxicity and to minimize it in my life. When you're healing and you get on this journey to heal, set boundaries, because sometimes people come along to try to distract you with toxicity and drama and etc. Those who are considered to be drama starters. I had to set boundaries, and then when the boundaries were being disrespected, I had to cut off, block, and delete. And that was difficult as well, but it got better as I started to take care of myself and knew that these things were not for my highest good. So, people, if you're going through anything like this, connect with a therapist, a grief support system, reach out because there are, channels and avenues out there to help you with this. And don't let this be any shame. There's no shame to this. And I would also say, keeping your personal business to yourself because everybody doesn't have to know that you're seeing a therapist or whatever. If you choose to tell certain people that you're close to, that's fine. But I'm very selective as to who I share information with as well. But I wanted to come on here today because I wanted to acknowledge that tomorrow is the anniversary of my mother's passing, and probably today and tomorrow I'm going to devote time to speak about her and what she's done and how she has made an impact on my life. So, guys, um, that's the message today. The key factor to healing is to self love, self care, to feel better, and to acquire inner peace. And if anyone is going through what I'm going through right now, take the time out to talk about the Passover loved one. Keep their memory alive. They may not be here physically, but their spirit is around you. That's the message again today. Invite others here at this channel. This is a no judgment channel. We're here to uplift and encourage everyone, especially in these uncertain times that we are facing in this world today. So thank you again, and I'll be back tomorrow. Please subscribe to the channel so that you will get a notification as to when I'm on and when I'm here live. Thank you again, guys, and you have a great Monday, and I'll see you again sometime tomorrow. This is Lisa shedding love and light and encouraging you all always. Have a good evening.